If you want to get married, nothing should stop you. Go ahead and get married.
Hi, I'm John from PGP Wedding Films, and welcome to Say Yes to the Best, where we talk to the best wedding pros to help you with your wedding planning. Subscribe on YouTube and follow us on Instagram. We have new content out all the time to help you with your wedding planning. Today, I'm talking with one of my absolute favorite wedding planners, Andi of Musa Weddings. She is an amazing wedding planner in Philadelphia, and she was actually our very first guest on Say Yes to the Best back before she rebranded to Musa Weddings. So we're really excited to have her back on.
Hey, John, thank you. Thanks for having me back.
And I definitely wanted to have a conversation with you today all about micro weddings, because here in March 2021, micro weddings are still a trend that I think we're going to be seeing a lot of as the pandemic is still going on. People still want to be married, but they might not be allowed to have a larger scale wedding. So I definitely want to get your insight about what you're seeing as far as micro weddings go.
Yeah, I think you are 100% correct there that micro weddings are here to stay. I think that with the pandemic, a lot of people realize how cool they can be, all the advantages that they can bring. So that's something that for sure, I feel like some people are definitely going to take advantage from now on and just make it more into a trend. Even despite, pandemic being over, hopefully in the near future, or the situation being better, restrictions being lifted, I feel like people are going to keep going with that micro wedding trend.
What do you think are some of the best parts of a micro wedding compared to a larger scale traditional wedding?
I think this is something that a lot of people say, and it's true. They say it because it is true. You do get to take advantage of every single guest that's there and truly connect with every person. When you reduce your guest count to a certain amount, to a very limited amount, you truly include in that list the people that are 100% the people that you want there and that you want to share that moment with. It doesn't mean that the rest of the guests that you probably, if you were initially thinking about a larger event, it doesn't mean that they're not important or, they can care less about them. It just means that there are the people that are really meaningful in their lives and everyday life, and not just, a certain person that I see every once in a while. So I feel like sharing that moment so special with those guests just really gives you a whole perspective of what the day is for. It's not to put up a show. It's not, or at least it shouldn't be about that. It should be about the two of you getting married and sharing it with the truly important people. And just having that smaller guest count, it really just gives you all the benefit of enjoying fully the time. It's a lot less traditions involved, a lot less people to connect with, and you really give a lot more opportunity for your guests to share the moments with you rather than just see you every once in a while, like, hey, there they go, say hi quickly. Or sometimes they don't even get to say hi. So having that smaller guest count helps a lot with that.
Totally. And I kind of feel like before the pandemic, if you told someone, I want to have a micro wedding, I want to elope, I want to have a backyard wedding, people might not think that you were invested in your wedding, that you really were treating it as a special event, that you really cared. And I think the pandemic and the rise of micro weddings has kind of shown that that's not necessarily the case. Just because the guest count is less, that it's not any less of an experience, that you want it to still be amazing. So kind of with that, what are some trends that you're seeing in micro weddings that you really, really love?
Yeah. And this is funny because I feel like people see micro weddings, you're completely right, as something that is not as cool or something as trendy or as fun. Sometimes like they're concerned about how fun can it be? Our guests are actually going to feel inclined to dance if it's only 10 people. And I have seen it, and I can definitely say they do. They have a blast. It doesn't matter if it's 200 guests or if it's 20. If they're going to have a good time, it doesn't matter where, with who, when, they're going to have a good time. So what I have seen in terms of like trends, it's just a lot of design pieces. People are realizing that a micro wedding doesn't mean going simpler on certain things. You can go all out, still plan anything that you have always envisioned, and even more because you have more room in the budget to be able to spend into some of those details that sometimes we see online. And they're like, we would love to do this, but once they realize, all right, now I have to do all this math for 300 people, I obviously can't fit that in my budget. So now they're realizing, okay, we can do all of those things. We can go a little out and maybe rent special plates, rent special flatware, glassware, the place settings, just really put a lot more detail into them. And it's something that in my book, it's extremely important whether you have, 300 guests or you have 10, just the attention to the detail. Guests really feel special when they arrive.
So you kind of mentioned it. As far as the budget goes, what are you seeing? Are couples allocating their budget any differently than they would during a non-COVID normal wedding, or are things looking a little different?
It's about the same, honestly, at least for my experience with my clients, it's about the same. So they have their amount of budget, obviously, for food, for drinks, for decor, for my services, for florist, for photographer. It's just obviously in a smaller scale. So the clients that I've had so far with micro weddings, they don't want to reduce the quality just because it's less people. They still plan, and obviously with my advice, they still plan on how much should we, allocate for flowers, for decor, for place setting, for the entrance, for whatever it is, right? It's just a matter of like figuring out what they want to do design wise and how much you're gonna separate for that. But in terms of like the whole budget, it's about the same as like a larger wedding and maybe even more, just obviously everything with a smaller scale. So it seems like a total number, it seems smaller because you're spending less, it's a lot less people, but just more in terms of like the design items that you can actually bring in.
So what are some elements you've seen couples put a little more emphasis on in their planning, whether that's investing a little more time and thought or even their budget into for their micro wedding?
I would say definitely florals. A lot of couples are going a little bit more out, just because exactly that they have more room in the budget now. So they can decorate certain areas, especially if it's at a house. They almost want to transform that space as if it was a venue. You don't want to bring in your guests to your house and make it look the same as if it was a birthday party or just a get together, family get together. There's no point. You want to transform it to make it feel like a wedding. So I feel like a lot of the couples that I've worked with, they definitely want to invest a little bit more in florals and decor, especially just in certain areas that you potentially could not afford if you were having a larger wedding. Just transforming a venue, it's usually a lot of money. So it gives them a little bit more room to invest in that.
Kind of on the other side of all of this, what are some challenges that you feel couples are encountering that they might not be expecting thinking of weddings in a more traditional sense?
I feel like the biggest struggle for them is their guest list. Just having to cut people, having to let them know how to even uninvite people. My couples come to me asking like, how do we even let them know, especially if they already sent a save the dates or potentially even an invitation. They don't know how to uninvite them in a nice, not professional, but just like a cordial way to say, I'm sorry, you didn't make it to the list anymore. And there are wordings that you can share with them, special ways that you can do it, but it's definitely a struggle for couples to have to tell their guests, I'm sorry, we can't count you in anymore.
Do couples have any sort of preconceived notions going into planning a micro wedding that you're seeing that it's kind of tripping them up?
Yeah, I feel like if it's somebody that I haven't been working with, if it's a couple that's completely new and sends me an inquiry and says, I'm having a micro wedding, it's a backyard wedding, I need you to help me plan it. They do come with a different perception of, well, it's a backyard wedding, it should be less. It's at our house, we're not paying for a venue, but they forget that you have to have a rain plan, a plan B in case of inclement weather. So bringing in a tent, bringing in flooring, lighting, the food, sometimes their kitchens are smaller and the caterer needs a lot more space. So the caterer needs to bring in extra kitchen equipment that they don't account for, all the flatware, glazeware, all of those things that you just don't think about if you are just planning on doing something in your backyard. You think, oh great, it's at my house, so it should be less. So I do feel like that's definitely a misconception, that it's going to be less than what you would be if you were at a venue. yes, you save the rental, but you also have to account for all of the other things that that venue had that your backyard doesn't.
What would you say to a couple who isn't quite sure what they want to do? They're not sure if they should go through with a micro wedding or if they should hold off until a traditional wedding makes more sense for them. What would you say to them?
Yeah. The same thing that I've been telling all of my couples. If you want to get married, nothing should stop you. Go ahead and get married. If it's in the middle of a pandemic, only you and just elope, or just your parents, just do it and then save for later on doing a bigger reception once you feel comfortable. But just, educating them, I think it's like the most important part. Pandemic or not, I feel like education for the couples, they don't know what they don't know, right? So it's just so important to let them know what to expect in advance. And micro weddings, just because they're a smaller scale, it doesn't mean that they're any different, if that makes any sense. So just trying to explain what a micro wedding would entail and see if they would even want to go through that expense and then later on having a larger wedding, or if they just want to do the micro wedding and be done with. It depends on where they are in life, I guess, too.
So I have a hypothetical question for you, Andi. If you had to create the perfect micro wedding, whether it's for your own, hypothetical wedding or for like one of your clients, what would you do to make it absolutely like the perfect, like Instagram worthy, Pinterest worthy wedding? Like if you could do anything, what would you do?
Oh, that's a good one, John. I would say a lot of the details. Like for me, like I said in the beginning, details, whether it's a 300 people wedding or just 10, to me, I feel like the details just say so much about your personality, what you like, who you are as a couple and as an individual. So I feel like paying attention to all those details, florals everywhere, to me, they're so important, even though, sometimes you don't need much depending on the space, but just really paying attention to what's around you and how to enhance it and make it look so special that the people that are there feel so lucky that they were able to share that moment with you and be in awe by everything that they're seeing. Anything from ceiling sites to tables to just the whole environment as one.
Andi, thank you so much for being part of the show again. I think this can really help couples who are looking to plan a micro wedding not only figure out some of the logistics and budget things with a micro wedding, but also kind of how to make it really, really awesome and incredible.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Andi from Musa Weddings, all of her information is going to be in the description below. So if you're looking to plan a micro wedding, you cannot do better than Andi. She will make everything perfect for you. As far as micro weddings go, I think it's really important to think about them during this time. I've talked with my wife a lot. Like, we wouldn't have wanted to wait a year plus to get married just for the big celebration. And that's the right choice for some people. If you go back a few episodes when we talked to Danny Mayali, she really wanted to have all of those people there. And there's no right or wrong choice. But Andi touched on this, and I think it's really important not to treat a micro wedding as something lesser. I think it's still the date you're getting married, and if you want it to be a beautiful experience, don't just kind of feel limited by what you think a wedding should be. Do what you want, because ultimately it's your day, and you shouldn't be trying to please anyone but yourself on your wedding day, at least in my opinion. Thank you again for watching Say Yes to the Best. If you like this content, please subscribe here on YouTube, or go to Facebook, go to Instagram. We have new content out all the time to help you with your wedding planning. Thanks, and happy planning.